the Desi Indian mobile brands, with all the issues that the Chinese mobile brands have been facing in India, despite the fact that, with their pricing and their branding, there's so many takers in India, with all the trouble that Chinese smartphone makers are facing, and with all the growth and the attention to making mobile phones from India, from Apple to smaller players, to developing our own operating system, to developing India's very own mobile, a lot is happening as far as the Desi mobile brands are concerned. It looks like, Rakeshji, this is the opportunity, this is the time to strike, to ensure that it is Indian Desi mobile brands that are dominating in this market of over 1.4 billion people.
It's an exciting headline, which has caught our attention, and we should pay, attention to it in terms of how does it pan out. But one must look at how did they exit, why did they exit, what was the, when the market is growing, and yet they were there, they had to exit because they didn't have viable business models. So a lot of excitement, but one needs to be careful about how they go forward. The intent is well articulated, but besides that, they need deep pockets to take on the multinationals, the Apples and the Samsungs of the world. The interesting thing here, Krishna and Kartik, is that, the beauty about the Indian, so to say, mobile phone market. Every decade, there's a new leader. We began with the Nokia 3300, which had this unique distinction of having a torch.
So, was it 3310, in which we all played Snake?
3310.
All our favorite mobile phones were for Indians are concerned.
And that model was only made in India because it had a torch as a supplement. And that torch, probably independent research has, so to say, evidence that torch also played a critical role. And those were the days that electricity, didn't supply itself in great quantity and great consistency. So over each decade, I have been watching it from the, Nokias to Samsungs, and then to, the Indian
the BlackBerry,
brands,
sir, the BlackBerry.
BlackBerry, black, yeah. I mean, so it's been a great. I'm a great advocate. All of us are at our team. That we are believers in the market forces. So market forces in India have enabled a plethora of brands with their own individual brightness to shine and dim as well. So interesting time to see Karbonn, Micromax coming back, and I don't know who the investors are, because these companies had run into financial trouble as well. That was one of the key reasons that they couldn't take up the challenge. But the larger segment they are attracting, Krishna, I think is really interesting. If we see, there is a new pattern emerging. Look at the cars, people are bypassing the entry-level cars. Look at mobile phones, they're bypassing the entry-level, category. So that at one level is a matter of deep research and study. Why is that happening? How is that happening? And what happens to the, if not the bottom of the pyramid, the layer one market, if we can call it, is that up for revival? If mobile phone announcements today by likes of Karbonn and Micromax is an indication, then it's a most welcome sign. Though I don't know where exactly is the JioPhone story. That also was built to be launched. I think it's been launched, but it hasn't received the kind of traction that it was supposed to, because they were also pitching in the entry-level plus category with more and more features, but the price being extremely competitive. So in for some exciting times on the price front, and let more and more people be enabled and empowered by a digitally led mobile phone in their hands.
Right. Stay with us, Rakesh. I'm going to take this to Kartik as well. Kartik, fact of the matter is that Rakesh is making a very important point. There is that premiumization of the Indian consumer, right from the first category onwards. If it's a basic economy phone, you want the premium basic economy phone.
True.
You want a great, feature phone, premium feature phone. That's how it goes, isn't it?
Absolutely. But I think the data that e-commerce players had released some time back suggested that the sub 15,000 rupee phone is where the volume is. The volume is in phones which cost 15,000 rupees and under, right? Whereas the value game is being played at phones which are 50,000 rupees and over. So the in-between segment actually doesn't have too many takers. The rich are going, or those who are aspirational, if not rich at least, are going for phones that cost in excess of 50,000 rupees, and that is where your premium OnePlus phones and your Samsung and of course your Apple come in. And the volume game is really being played at the 15,000 and below. So I think it'll be difficult for Indian brands like Micromax or Karbonn in the foreseeable future to compete in the value segment. I think the volume segment is what they're rightly going after. But again, look at the amount of competition that exists there, from a Vivo to an Oppo to a Xiaomi, Realme, and what have you. I mean, I think
nothing phones.
Nothing, right? Nothing to everything. There is pretty much, the whole gamut is open for exploration.
Yeah.
So to come back, rebuild that trust, rebuild that brand image, and of course produce good quality, not very expensive smartphones that do the job for the value conscious consumer who is the bulk of the volume, it becomes a very difficult playing field. So I think these companies will have to come with real innovative marketing strategies on the back of a robust product which is not compromised in any way. And my biggest fear is it should not eventually become yet another sort of, digressed route of importing components or partly built units from China or elsewhere, brand them with Make in India, go to market, and avail of all the PLI schemes and everything else that benefits them, eventually only to be turned around and said that, hey, you actually did not really make in India, you only assembled in India. And then that is going to take the trust away completely.
That's very, Rakeshji, that's very, very important, isn't it? The fact that even as Indian mobile makers want to, cash in on, on the situation right now and take it forward, they'll have to be very clear about making almost everything in India, if not everything.
But I mean, there's a challenge there from the policy framework. You cannot exclude X and include Y in a policy framework. There is a PLI set in for the auto for the mobile phone sector. So I really don't know how the government is going to look at it. Denying it to a particular maker and allowing it for any other maker. So in that sense, I agree with Kartik. Ideally, they should have their own legs to stand on. And that will happen if they have a robust product. They invest in R&D, bring about features at half the price possibly of a 15,000 plus phone. Then they have a chance. Otherwise, I think one of the reasons for the return, unfortunately or fortunately, could be also the incentivization that is happening under the PLI scheme.
Right. I'm only curious, Kartik, when I look at the fact that Karbonn and Micromax, and Rakesh, we're talking about Byju's and the pride that we've had when Byju's, an Indian company, got the valuations it did. And the same kind of pride we felt when a Micromax landed up on the market and then a Karbonn landed up on the market, isn't it? It's a matter of a source of pride that, in a world where it's all about the mobile phones, we are able to make mobile phones for our own consumption.
I mean, Krishna and Kartik, I have a very strong view on that. I really don't go by this Make in India tag. Do you know that Maruti is now majority owned by Suzuki for the last 10 plus 15 years? And we're proud of cars being made in India, but ownership and labeling, I think we should pass that because we should drive and derive the strength of the Indian consumer market and dictate terms to manufacturers, whether they're Indian or global, for the best quality price, best features, and durability, and be happy with that. I think that let's not
I couldn't agree more, Rakeshji. I could not agree more. We always speak on behalf of the consumer here on Business Plus. The consumer wins. Consumer is the king, and at the end of the day, that's where the buck stops. But we will move on away from the story, Rakeshji, to another story we've been talking about.
I'm tempted to share a story with you here. Before 1991 reforms,
please go ahead.
Probably when you were much younger, it used to take a whole lot of patronage to curry favor with your uncles, mama, chacha, bhatija, or who goes to US and gets a bloody one basic Levi's jean. And that really happened. I have personal examples of my friends or myself, really requesting someone to import one piece of jean. And then he would say, oh, I got terribly busy, I couldn't do it. I'm so sorry, next time. Always, and then came in the 1991 reforms brought about by P.V. Narasimha Rao's political acumen and executed in a very great manner by Manmohan Singh. And consumer is the king, and we have the best brands in India. The story there is how global brands are acclimatizing themselves or doing something which they're not done in the market. For instance, the McDonald's going for a aloo tikki, and now Levi's going for an Indian ethnic dress, and the range is on and on and on. It goes growing every day. So that is the beauty of the market, and that market comprises the Indian consumer. So let him be the king. Him, her, be the king.
Let us be the kings is the word coming from Rakesh. Let us be the kings.
And queens. Yeah.